Hello. Today I'm going to talk about what meditation practice looks like and how you can implement it into your life. There's not really one method for all, one solution. And I'm going to share resources with you that might help you develop a practice, refresh your practice, upkeep your practice. It's funny, the word practice, it's quite natural for me now in referring to meditation. So we'll talk about a meditation sit. In the mindfulness world, when we gather for a sit, we mean we're going to sit together in meditation. And then when I talk about a practice, often it's the meditation practice that I'm referring to. So there's some lingo there, jargon. But other than that, I think a lot of people struggle with starting meditation because they feel like there's kind of no space, there's a rigid way of doing it. You got to sit for this many minutes or hours, eventually a day. And that's not really a realistic frame of mind, I think. And really, meditation for you and your personalized format is what you make it to be. So there's no right or wrong. And I actually recently had the pleasure of listening to a friend of mine, colleague, talk about self-compassion and meditation and how that often gets missed. So we'll both be teaching a 6-week introductory course to mindfulness in the spring. And we were kind of bouncing back on ideas, and she said she would really emphasize the self-compassion piece on meditation in her first week because, when you kind of make a commitment, and there is a commitment piece to it, promise to yourself. It is a well-being tool, like I've written in the worksheet. You might put yourself under pressure, and you might feel like you're doing it wrong. And some people I know, and I used to be like this too, you like start sitting and maybe you're listening to someone guide you, or you're doing your own thing. You're 5 minutes, whatever, sitting down in the morning or halfway through your day, and you're going, and all of a sudden you realize you're thinking about lunch, or you're thinking about groceries, or your dog, or your kids, and that's okay. That's meditation. It's when you lose track of whatever you're bringing attention to within yourself, and it could be guided imagery that you're listening to, or your breath or your body, and you get caught, well, then you just return. And many of my teachers say this. That's the practice. That's why we meditate, is because over time, you'll get less distracted in thought or feeling or sensation, and you return quicker. So I remember, there's different obstacles to feeling like you're meditating correctly, and again, that's kind of already setting yourself up for failure, because there is no perfect, there is no standard other than returning from distraction to whatever the object is that you're meditating on. And that's the practice. So just being kind to yourself through that, because I think a lot of people stop their efforts, and that's why I recommend Sharon Salzberg's, I think this one's month-long or 21-day challenge, because she'll walk you through the steps, and it's kind of a daily thing that you can do instead of just quitting because on your second day, you were supposed to sit there and for, let's say, 5 minutes, and 4.5 minutes in you realize you've just been thinking about something that happened at work or a fight you've had with your partner. And that's, and maybe the bell rings if you're listening to a recording and you have no idea where you've just been during the entire thing. That's just the beginning, and it does get better, I promise. It takes practice, it takes patience, and most of all, please, it takes self-love and compassion. So that was just like a really inspiring talk that I got to have a chat with my colleague. And so other than that, logistically, like I said, it's a commitment. So for myself, to give you an idea, so I've been meditating for almost a decade, maybe 8 years, seriously. And I do meditate every day. And right now, my goal for this year is to increase the time that I sit for every day. So it's really common that I'll sit for 10-15 minutes every day. That's easy for me. And then when I'm guiding, I'm usually meditating for a couple hours, because I'll guide for friends or clients, and then I'll also guide for colleagues and people that I'm training with to become a mindfulness teacher. So when we all go through it, it takes an hour and a half or so. So that's easy. That's like a structure that I've set up. But what my goals is to actually meditate on my own for at least half an hour. And that's kind of like for where I'm at, that should. So that's the critic, the inner critic is what we call it. Many people with this much experience, it seems, already meditate half an hour every day. I realize that that's hard for me. I have a lot of demands on my time, busy schedule. And so this year, we've been doing work on intention setting and kind of planning ahead. So in my goals, in my daily goals, actually weekly goal, so daily is to upkeep my 10 to 15 minute, I do a specific meditation every day. But then on the weekly, I'd like to sit for at least half an hour twice a week on my own. And I like twice a week out of 7 days doesn't seem like that much, but I know for me it's a realistic commitment. So talking about logistics, pick something that's realistic for you. And if you don't know what that is, start out small and then you can always go bigger. And I've shared, places where you can find help for that. So there are apps that, so Insight Timer will let you start a timer when you begin and then end, or you can meditate with other people. Sometimes it's in silence. You just find your community through it. And then obviously all the guided meditations are timed, so you'll know exactly how long you've meditated for. And I do recommend, depending on where you're coming from and what your background is with meditation, I think guided is really helpful in the beginning. And if you're not really someone who likes to listen to other people, then you can read books about it and then kind of get an idea of like what it can feel like or what you can focus on if you don't want to have a voice kind of in the back of your head all the time, or your mind, ears. And then from there, just kind of read the script maybe before you sit and go. A lot of self-help books have written out meditation scripts. And if you have any questions about any of those or recommendations, I'm happy to provide and suggest some. So pick something that's realistic, try out different styles. I'm mostly mindfulness based. I do use, I work with energy because I'm also a yoga student. I will sometimes use the energy centers, the chakras. I also am really into nature meditation. And so that's kind of a separate piece here. But it's super important to point out there's kind of a formal way of meditating where you usually sit down on a pillow. I'm sitting on it right now. I can point it out. This is a typical meditation cushion. It's called, I think it's the Zafu. Yeah. And then there's like another square that you can have. And I can't remember what that one's called. But anyways, so that's your Zafu. You don't need that. You can sit on a yoga block. It's usually helpful to have your hips propped up a little bit higher than your knees. You don't have to. You can use, when I'm traveling, I just take 2 pillows and I fold them and I put them on top of each other. I think that was a sidetrack. I was getting at something. There's just so much to say. I feel very fortunate and passionate to be able to talk about it. Oh yes, so formal practice. Here we are, sitting, standing. I don't know that I've posted a walking meditation yet, but I might add it to my offerings. So check that out on my website, or I'll send you a message. Walking meditation is great. And that's actually, so the link there is you can do it any meditation in nature. You don't have to sit cross-legged. I think meditation, and this is kind of my personal take on it, and that's what I want to offer to the world too, is it also just becomes a way of being. It's about embodying some values, some vibrations. When you get up from your sit, your formal sit, and you're feeling maybe spacious or centered or calm, serene, you carry that with you throughout the rest of your day as much as possible. And you don't need to be sitting to do it. So, of course, there's, the mindfulness practices where you bring awareness to your state of being kind of constantly, and that keeps you really grounded. And I encourage you to try it out in nature. So it could be, noticing a tree or a plant, walking softly on the earth, feeling your feet in the sand if you're near a beach, or listening. Sound meditations in nature are amazing. And you can do this in a city, I promise you. I'm going to be trying it out in New York, actually this year. I can't even say next year anymore, hopefully. But being aware of your surroundings and kind of, if you're doing sound, it's helpful to turn off the visual sense. Nature can be so calming. Last night I was hanging out with my horses, maybe around this time, it's about 10 p.m. at night, and they were both breathing heavily. They were almost sleeping. And so I tuned in, so I kind of went into a meditation state. And I focused on sound, and I could hear their breathing. And then I kind of widened from there, and I could hear frogs because it had rained, and it was like a frog choir. And then in the distance, the owls were hooting at each other, responding. And then because I'm in Northern California, Sonoma County, there were cows. And I can only think of the French word for whatever noise the cows make. But, they were calling each other. And it was just so special. And to just kind of become aware of your environment. And of course in nature, it's so pleasant. But you can do this in a park. If you're in a city and you only have access to a park, if you have access to a park, it's actually already a blessing. But you could sit down on the ground, or you could stand up, close your eyes, and kind of feel into, maybe if there are trees around you, what does that feel like? We're kind of constantly in communication with all sentient life, and plants, trees, the ocean, mountains have spirit. At least I believe so. But there are so many, and I might be writing my master's thesis on this, but the benefits of nature on calming the mind and helping us thrive. So you don't need to be always formally on a cushion. If you're walking your dog, this is a great time to meditate, or be in kind of a mindful meditative state, Be present, turn off your phone. Helps with keeping a meditative state throughout the day. And I know this is getting to be a longer video, so I'm going to stop, and I encourage you to reach out to me if you have any questions, if you want help setting up your meditation practice or refreshing it, thinking of new ideas, new ways, or if you want to do a challenge with me, or find times that we can meditate together. I'd love that too. So take care, my friends.